What is a wounded healer? You may have heard the term wounded healer before, particularly in relationship to shamanism. The wounded healer is an archetype, a thought form. The idea is that in being wounded, healing capabilities are opened up. I find this to be true for me and many others, and this post will explain how that works. Traditional shamans. In many indigenous cultures, where shamanism is still practiced, those fulfilling the role of a shaman are chosen and not self-selected. One thing that is very common is that those selected have been through some kind of serious trauma. This trauma might be physical, like a life-threatening illness, or even an emotional trauma. There are cultures where certain mental illnesses, as defined by Western medicine, would be seen as the beginnings of a path as a healer or prophet. There are even stories of cultures in South America where being struck by lightning is a prerequisite for being chosen as a shaman. Other cultures put potential shamans through ordeals, like vision quests, exposure to physical extremes, or lengthy and dangerous trials. All of these things, whether chosen trials or involuntary traumas, are initiations. Most of the practitioners I know are wounded healers. Most have been through serious illness, near-death experiences, or other serious traumas. In my own case, I had a foot amputated and was diagnosed with PTSD later in life. I believe that the traumas I endured made me well suited for shamanism. The wounded healer is what we call it when a person is called to help others because of their own suffering or pain. For example, a person who was very sick as a child might want to become a doctor or a nurse when they get older. A person who has battled drug addiction might become a drug and alcohol counselor. A person who has suffered abuse might help others who are going through the same thing. Studies suggest that the majority of counselors and psychotherapists, almost 75%, have their own struggles, which played a big part in the choosing their own profession. The wounded healer is considered a Jungian archetype in psychology, but the concept is, of course, much older than that. For shamans, there is usually a period of what is called shaman sickness. The would-be shaman is stricken with a chronic, often mysterious illness from which they become very sick. There may be traumatic experiences as well, or psychological issues. It can last a long time, even years. This is considered to be the initiation by the spirits. The shaman eventually accepts the calling, heals themselves, and shares their wisdom with the community, using it to help others. Initiation. To initiate is to begin in the world of shamanism. All of life, and even death, is a series of initiations. We are always beginning something. When we go through severe difficulty, often it is preparing us psychologically and energetically for what comes next. My own experience is with trauma. Modern psychology will say that one of the major symptoms of trauma is dissociation. It's like part of the psyche breaks off to protect itself from what's happening. This makes sense when experiences are too threatening or intense. Dissociation is a defense mechanism. In shamanic terms, part of the soul escapes in order to protect itself. If that piece of the soul does not return, there is a splitting, a loss of energy, physical and psychological symptoms. We call that soul loss. The main practice of a shaman is called a journey. In a journey, a shaman uses tools like drumming or sacred plants to induce trance. Once trance is induced, part of the soul departs to do the work in what we call non-ordinary reality.
I am triple excited to share this episode with you because we are covering three of my most favorite subjects: shamanism, movement, and music. And I couldn't have a better guest to develop a conversation for the three of them. Yakov Darling Khan is a UK-based shaman, author, and movement medicine practitioner. He is the founder of the School of Movement Medicine with his wife Susanna, where they are traveling the world and they're educating people how to heal themselves using movement and dance. He's a best-selling author of books related to shamanism, but he is also a shaman that carries 3 decades of experience in shamanic practices and studied with shamans and elder tribal leaders from around the world.
My name is Yakov Darling Khan, and I am the author of Jaguar in the Body, Butterfly in the Heart, the real-life initiation of an everyday shaman. I've written this book to share with you my 30-year initiation into the shaman's world. And I've written it because I want to share with you that life is magical. Life is full of possibilities. Each one of us has something of profound value to give in this life. I've found throughout my journey that the most satisfying thing about human being is to find the medicine that's inside us, whatever that is, and to share that with the world. So I've described to you in this book, as honestly as possible, some of the challenges and the difficulties and the suffering I went through in order to understand what it is to be a shaman in the modern world. If the Great Spirit created all of this, what I want to know is what created the Great Spirit. I was in love with the mystery of life, and I still am. And it's that love of mystery that's led me on my road. In my early 20s, I was out on a golf course, and I got hit by lightning. And in the moment of being hit by lightning, which felt like being hammered from the top of my head into the ground, in that moment, my life changed. I recognized how fragile life is. I recognized how close to death we are the whole time. And I recognized what a precious gift this life is. And I heard in those seconds afterwards, Yakov, you have to learn how to use your gift. So I went on a journey that took me from meeting an old Sami shaman who I'd spent 12 years dreaming about before I actually met him, to working with traditional elder shamans in the Amazon rainforest, to working with contemporary modern shamans using conscious dance practice in the studios of New York, I traveled looking to be able to offer a form of shamanism that is both practical and poetic, both pragmatic and inspiring. It took me a long time to discover a form of shamanism that I felt was applicable and appropriate for us living in modern times in the modern world. And together with my wife, Susanna, we created a form of everyday contemporary shamanism that's called movement medicine. It's my story. It's the story of all the nonsense I've been through, all the blind alleys that I ran down, all the effort that I put in as I was growing up and learning to accept the mantle, the vocation of what it is to be a shaman. And shamanism has become incredibly popular in the last 2 to 3 decades. And there's been an awful lot of misinformation about what shamanism is. So I'm here today to share with you 7 interesting facts that you may not know about shamanism. So here's the first one. Shamanism, in general, does not require you to believe in anything. Shamanism is about direct experience. It's about being able to experience for yourself the reality of the interconnected nature of life, how you and I and the powers of nature and the force of life and the divine presence of life are absolutely interconnected. And when we experience that directly through the body, through the heart, we know it. It's a deeper knowing than we could have through being told. It's a deeper knowing than we could have from reading it in a book. It's direct experience. Number 2, everyday shamanism is for everyday people like you and me. And what I mean by that is over the past 30 years, I've worked with literally thousands of people from all around the world. I've worked with people in Africa, in the Arctic Circle, in the Amazon, all throughout Europe, in the USA, in South America, rich and poor, young and old. So everybody has something that is utterly unique and of great value to offer. And the practice of shamanism is designed to bring you to the place where you can listen and receive and know that for yourself in a deeply embodied sense. Point number 3. The past, far from being a problem, in shamanism we see the past and everything that's happened, even our traumas, even our difficulties, we see the past as a source of high-octane energy for living now. We have the capacity within us to turn around and face our past and to transform our relationship to it, to choose the meaning that we give to the experiences that we've had, and to turn our experiences into medicine, into our offering, into a deeper sense of purpose and meaning of who we are. So point number 4 is really fascinating. Modern research and ancient shamanism are coming together through neuroscience, through understanding a little bit more how the brain works. So shamanism and science are much closer together than you might think. So, for instance, there's been a lot of research into the brain states that we go into when we drum, when we go into trance, when we meditate deeply. And I find this really fascinating, how modern science, the research into the brain, the neurology of the body, the neurons in the gut, how we function as human beings, is that there is a meeting now between what the shamans of old, of antiquity, knew and what we're discovering through science. So human beings in general are super interested in changing their states. It's been estimated that the economy for changing states is worth up to $4.5 trillion a year. That's a huge amount of energy that we humans put into looking for a change of state, whether that's with a glass of wine, a cup of coffee, or the shaman's drum. we are looking for altered states constantly. We're looking for that space where the mind quietens, where our imagination opens, where we connect with the heart, where we feel directly our connectivity with the living earth underneath us, with the sun rising in the morning. And one of the deepest ways we have in shamanism of changing states, and probably one of the healthiest, is the shaman's drum. The shaman's drum played at between 110 and 130 beats per minute for 7 minutes will change your brain state. It will bring the brain into a more relaxed state, into a more open state, into a more creative state. It will connect us to the power, the emotional power of our own hearts. And in that condition, we are able to understand much more deeply issues that may be bothering us, to bring our problems, our challenges, our creative problems to that state and to gain access to a much deeper intelligence. Point number 6 is practice makes the master. And shamanism is the same. What we practice, what we give our attention to, grows. So everybody is capable of experiencing the benefits of shamanism, of experiencing our actual connection to the powers of nature, to the waters, to the fire, to the earth, to the wind. And when we practice that connection, whether we're walking in nature, whether we're dancing, whether we are sitting under our favorite tree, and we give our attention to the aliveness and the power that's in nature and its effect on us, the more attention we give to those relationships, the deeper they go. So that in a normal everyday sense, when we're walking to work, when we're just busy on our screens, and we just take a moment to give our weight through the chair to the ground beneath us and remember that we're all children of this earth. One of my teachers, a man called Victor Sanchez, used to have us chanting to the rising sun. He used to have us go and watch the rising sun and run on the spot until the sun was fully in the sky, and then from our hearts shout out our intention for the day. And one of the things he said you must always repeat is it's that we are all children of the sun, and it's our nature to shine. And that really, it brought such a lot of brightness into my day-to-day life. Point number 7, I want to introduce you to the shamanic law of reciprocity. Reciprocity is balance between giving and receiving. And one of our challenges as a species at the moment is that we are mostly focused on what we don't have. We're kind of hungry for more. And shamanism teaches us to receive the goodness of the life that we are given, the goodness of the breath, the goodness of waking up in the morning and feeling the heart beating, to say thank you to life, to recognize death as a teacher, reminding us that our life here is precious, reminding us of the miracle of everyday life, to receive. The more we receive the gift of our life, the deeper we can give. And yet also, the more we give of ourselves, the more we can receive. And reciprocity is a figure of 8. It's an infinity loop. And when there's anything in the way of my giving or my receiving, my giving or my receiving, then that channel is lessened. Our capacity to give and receive is diminished. And through dance, through movement, through shamanic healing, through ceremony and ritual, we are able to clear out this channel so that we become the power that we are. We become the force that we are. And we can give everything we've got. And there is nothing more satisfying in this life than giving the gifts that are unique to us, sharing them. That's the deepest receiving we can have.
Yakov is a gifted healer of the highest integrity who has written a masterpiece that will help you understand, embrace and harness the power of your inner shaman. His words and guidance serve as a path to live with greater purpose and create a world where we can turn suffering into healing.
So, movement medicine is a set of principles and practices designed to introduce you, whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever your experience, whatever age you are, whatever level of fitness, whatever shape of body, whatever culture you come from. It's designed to introduce you to the dancer inside you. And this dancer is already free. This dancer is already freely moving. They're already in touch with the deepest sense of your own creative potential. So in our workshops, we guide you and we lead you to help you to get over that quite natural self-consciousness that you might feel, and very quickly to get into contact with this creative potential inside you. It's extraordinary. In nearly 25 years of traveling, I've never met anybody who's not capable of finding the sense of peace, the sense of self, the sense of connection, the sense of heart, the sense of remembering what matters to them in their life through the dance. And the dance is an international language. It's a language that we all know. We all move every day. And all we do in movement medicine is put you in touch with the natural principles of movement. We put you in touch with the elements from which you're made: earth, fire, water, and wind. We guide you to be able to really listen to the space inside you, to know what's going on, to be able to embody and communicate that, and through that to be able to connect with others and with what's going on in the world around us.
In my experience, shadows can and do show up in all areas of life. Money, sex, power, you name it. I found it enormously fruitful and life-benefiting to actively seek out my own shadows. I'm confident you will too. The inner shaman is a fine ally in this. Their love of the unknown and intrinsic creativity are invaluable at those inevitable times in life when the lights go out and we find ourselves stumbling in the dark. So it's time now to ask your inner shaman to help you acknowledge and own how the roles of victim, persecutor, rescuer, and hungry ghost operate in your life as a vicious circle and collectively make up the central villain of the piece, the charlatan or false self, who is guaranteed to cause you and others pain. As a way out of the circle, we will invoke and embody the 4 archetypal presences that make up the medicine circle: the dancing warrior, the dancing fool, the wise elder, and the wounded healer. These 4 medicine archetypes are powerful allies who collectively empower our central archetype, the nemesis of the charlatan, the inner shaman. Their mutually enhancing skills will give you the resources to see how the vicious circle operates, escape from it, and step into the medicine circle. The hungry ghost is well known to most of us in one form or another. They play out our collective story that there is something missing inside us that can be described as a lack of both genuine nurturing, mothering, and loving discipline, fathering. Not knowing their own ground, the hungry ghost seeks to find it in whatever their hunger attaches to. Deep down, self-loathing, shame, and a genuine lack of confidence in themselves and in life are the poisoned ground they stand on. They seek external approval and external solutions, and at the same time, even if they are received, they will never be enough. The spiritual malady of addiction leads them on a downward spiral where the only respite in the fleeting pleasure of surrender to their addiction, followed swiftly by a temporary zoning out from the suffering of life that only adds to the malaise on their return. The persecutor condemns and blames the victim and has no problem letting them know it. They use their power to make sure that everyone realizes victims are to blame for their own troubles. After all, they are bad people and, in the extreme, not even worthy members of the human race. Persecutors are righteously convinced that they are doing what's best, and as long as it benefits them, they maintain the status quo, claiming it to be the natural order of things. But deep down, they are lonely, and behind their iron mask, they are secretly longing for love. The victim feels powerless to engage creatively with life. They take the moral high ground, but play low status, and because they see themselves as weak, they don't notice the effect they are having on others and their environment. They say, life is happening to me just as it always has, just as it always will. They wear their past hurts as good reason not to take responsibility for themselves in the present. They justify their behavior by staying identified with being powerless to change it in any way deep down. They are afraid of the fury they are sitting on, and though they depend on their rescuer, resentment is never far away. The rescuer, the classic do-gooding enabler, works to keep the focus off themselves at all costs. They have convinced themselves that they can and must save victims from persecutors. They see exactly what needs to happen and they impose their view on the situation without being asked. In so doing, they manage both to enrage the persecutor and keep the victim feeling as powerless as ever. Deep down, they believe that if they give enough, eventually someone will love them back. A common phrase for rescuers is, "After all I've done for you, this is what I get." From there, it's only a short hop into any of the other roles in the vicious circle.
Already knowing that who we're being is much more important than specifically what we're doing. So in any healing modality, except in the most technical fields like orthopedics, where you just have to set bones, but in any healing relationship that involves interacting with people, who we're being is more important, or at least as important as the techniques that we have at our disposal. But in terms of who we're being, I learned something here, which is that we create who we're being. we created regularly in our lives. This is not a given. Who we're being is not a given. It's not given to us. Now, there may be a deep being that is just part of our nature. It's not quite what I'm addressing here. I'm talking about energetically who we're being.
The inner shaman knows that healing is possible, but healing sometimes means accepting that some wounds leave permanent scars, and the best we can do is learn to live with them. At other times, healing means profound and even apparently miraculous transformation. In all cases, shamanic healing takes persistence and care. We need the safety and courage that the dancing warrior brings. We need the warm and clear presence of the wounded healer. We need the patience and love of the wise elder. And if we are to imagine doors where once there were just brick walls, we need the humor and creativity of the dancing fool. With all of these in place, I've been privileged to witness many people recovering from some of the worst kinds of trauma we can inflict on one another, and becoming some of the most empowered and creative people I know. The wounded healer, rooted in our connection to the Divine Mother and Divine Father, is hugely important to our well-being on every level. Whatever our experience with our own parents, the archetypal mama offers the warm holding, safety and acceptance vital to healthy beginnings, while the archetypal papa offers the clear, loving and boundaried guidance that gives us the safety and confidence to know where we are and grow into who we are. Whatever our personal history, we can all make the connection with the Divine Mother in the form of the earth under our feet and the Divine Father in the form of the light of the sun. Together, they make up the archetype of the wounded healer, who can provide the nurturing and illumination we need to choose a path of self-acceptance and self-determination and break the chains of our addictions. The dancing warrior uses the very same power that the persecutor uses to stand up for and protect what matters most to them and to fight for what they hold most valuable. Without a doubt, owning who we are in this world and facing the unknown, that is so much part of life in a body required to power and discipline of a warrior. The Holy Grail for the warrior is the power of choice. They don't indulge in the omnipotent fantasy that we create reality, but they understand that we do create our perception of reality. They provide the protection that we need to feel safe enough to recognize the inherent vulnerability of being human. The dancing fool is creativity itself. Without past or future, there is only the invitation of the present. Laughter and play are good medicine. Even more so is that quiet awe in the face of the improbable magnificence of existence that opens our eyes to the mystery and gives the dancing fool the power to fully embrace the opportunity of the moment. Their fascination with life allows them to see the ingredients on offer in any given situation as a rich palette of color. with which to create. Their imagination is boundless, and their fear non-existent. Their innocence is their protection, and the world their oyster. The wise elder is the part of us who witnesses all of life's happenings with the love, patience, and depth born of long-term practice. They have been with us through all the ups and downs of life, sitting quietly at the center of our heart, waiting for us to come and join them and ask them for guidance. They hold our inner wisdom. They take the long view that eldership brings. They know us well, and they have that humorous twinkle in their eye and wrinkled smile that hint at golden secrets.
Deep trauma that needed to be cleared somehow. That is that uncleared trauma that was creating blockages in my life and emotional problems for me. I came to the temple to help lead a retreat, mostly for healthcare providers, that is to say physicians, psychiatrists, specialists of various kinds, psychologists, counselors, psychotherapists, and so on. And it was really rather funny what the Shipiba healers told us, because they're being medicos themselves, they're being healers themselves. They put profound emphasis on their own healing and their own clearing. Anybody that comes into the healing professions, in my experience, and this includes myself as well, does so in significant part because of their own healing that they need to do, unresolved stuff that they haven't yet cleared, which is okay. But then we go out there and then we work with a lot of people with difficult histories, with traumas, with disturbed energies, with illnesses, and it is illusory to think that we don't absorb these energies of the people that we work with. Nothing in Western medical education, which is a very biologically based, narrowly focused, separating organs from one another, separating the mind from the body based approach, nothing in the training actually prepares us to clear ourselves, to deal with our own unresolved stuff, let alone to clear out the energies that we daily absorb working with really challenged human beings. And so these Shipibo healers found it more than ironic that this group of healers came here carrying more dark energy than a lot of other people do. Because again, in their tradition, they'd just be naturally working on that. Am I doing the work to take care of who I'm being on a daily basis? And so I may have all kinds of right intentions and do good work in the world, but in terms of my own joy and therefore my capacity to broadcast a healing possibility and invite it in the other person, I have to do the work regularly required for my own healing. Now, that actually requires integrity. And integrity means being with one's word. That that my actions line up with my declared intentions on a regular basis. And when they do not, I take care of it. I clean it up. Now that actually, without going into details, became an issue for me here at the temple. And with support and the very kind patience of the maestro I was working with, it was resolved. But it was an instantaneous example of how spontaneously, whenever we're being whenever we're out of integrity with ourselves, that's going to affect how we feel, how we act, and the whole community around us.
I believe that early dissociative experiences can prepare potential shamanic healers for journeying. It's like the soul has a looser hold on the parts. That being said, to be effective, a shaman must go through their own healing first. When I teach journeying, if a student has trouble, often it's the result of soul loss. A soul retrieval ceremony can help. It is in the wounding and healing process that we become energetically prepared for the work to help others.